So every year as the school year draws to a close, I make a point of sitting down with the 8th graders to connect before graduation. In our time together, the 8th graders have a chance to reflect on their memories over the years, favorite teachers, experiences, and traditions. I've asked every 8th grader about things they would like to see change at Montgomery and what they hope will remain the same. The list of things that they have hoped will never change won't surprise you. Things like Greek and Roman days, middle school class trips, holiday chapels, and Friday night lights. I also poll them about the last chapel and ask them for some feedback about the book that I will read. So today I will be sharing with you The Mountain That Loved a Bird. This story teaches several really good lessons that make us better people. Often in chapels you hear terrific stories filled with character lessons performed by students. In reading this story multiple times, one can get different messages each time. It's powerful and can bring out many feelings. In it there is joy and love, sadness and anger, rebirth, happiness, and new life. If this is your first time hearing the story, or your last, let me give you some things to think about as we go through it. When you see the mountain, imagine Montgomery School. And Joy the bird is you, the 8th graders, and our alumni coming back every year. It's also possible that Joy is all of you, our students, and that Joy will not come back forever, so she names one of her children Joy, and then she will name a child Joy, who will show them where the mountain is. Over time, the Joys come back year after year, just like all of you do, and bring enough seeds and twigs to create a beautiful place where Joy can make a home, just like Montgomery School and the students that went before you. As you will see, the ending of this story is beautiful, but the greatest gift is what happens between the time when Joy first goes to the mountain and when Joy makes the mountain home again. Joy shows great loyalty and honesty to the mountain by returning year after year. The mountain is incredibly happy at first, but becomes sad and angry before coming back to life. Can you imagine a friend ignoring you year after year as the mountain does to the bird? Would you lose patience and stop being kind to that friend? Would you say, forget it, I'm not going back. I have to work too hard. I'm not going to visit someone who doesn't seem to care. But if you think about it, Joy keeps being kind to the mountain. Joy doesn't give up being good to the mountain. And it really shows the power of goodness and love. So as you listen to the story being read, I want you to think about these 2 takeaways. First, always be good and kind to people, because in the end, you will create a beautiful world around you, just as Joy does. And if you find yourself being like the mountain, ignoring someone or not letting them in, think about changing your ways. You might just be ignoring someone who will make your life more interesting, more beautiful, and more fun, just as Joy did to the mountain. So to the 8th graders, the class of 2019, this reading is dedicated to you, to remind you about your home and that we hope you will come back often. Now, The Mountain That Loved a Bird by Alice McLaren, illustrated by Eric Carl. There once was a mountain made of bare stone. It stood alone in the middle of a desert plain. No plant grew on its hard slopes, nor could any animal, bird, or insect live there. The sun warmed the mountain, and the wind chilled it. But the only touch the mountain knew was the touch of rain and snow. There was nothing more to feel. All day and all night, the mountain looked only at the sky, watching for the movement of the billowing clouds. It knew the path of the sun that crossed the sky by day and the course of the moon that crossed the sky by night. On clear nights, it watched the slow wheeling of far-off stars, but there was nothing more to see. Then one day, a small bird appeared. She flew in a circle above the mountain, then landed on a ledge to rest and preen her feathers. The mountain felt the dry grasp of her tiny claws on the ledge. It felt the softness of her feathered body as she sheltered herself against its side. The mountain was amazed, for nothing like this had ever come from the sky before. "Who are you?" the mountain asked. "What's your name?" "I am a bird," replied the other. "My name is Joy, and I come from distant lands where everything is green. Every spring I fly high in the air, looking for the best place to build my nest and raise my children. As soon as I have rested, I must continue my search." "I have never seen anything like you before," said the mountain. "Must you go on? Could you just stay here?" Joy shook her head. "Birds are living things," she explained. "We must have food and water. Nothing grows here for me to eat. There are no streams from which I could drink." "If you cannot stay here, will you come back again someday?" asked the mountain. Joy thought for a while. "I fly long distances," she said, "and I have rested on many mountains. No other mountain has cared whether I came or went, and I should return to you. But I could only do so in the spring before I build my nest, and because you are so far from food and water, I could only stay a few hours." "I have never seen anything like you before," repeated the mountain. "Even if it were only for a few hours, it would make me happy to see you again." "There is one more thing you should know," Joy said. "Mountains last forever, but birds do not. Even if I were to visit you every spring of my life, there might be only a few visits. Birds do not live for very many years." "It will be sad when your visit stops," said the mountain, "but it would be even sadder if you fly away now and never return." Joy sat very still, nestled against the side of the mountain, and then she began to sing a gentle, bell-like song, the first music the mountain had ever heard. When she finished her song, she said, "Because no mountain has ever before cared whether I came or went, I will make you a promise. Every spring of my life, I will return to greet you and fly above you and sing to you. And since my life will not last forever, I will give you one of my daughters, my own name, and tell her how to find you. And she will name a daughter Joy also and tell her how to find you. Each Joy will have a daughter Joy, so that no matter how many years pass, you will always have a friend to greet you and fly above you and sing to you." The mountain was both happy and sad. "I still wish you could stay," it said, "but I'm glad you will return." "Now I must go," said Joy, "for it is a long way to the lands that have food and water for me. Goodbye until next year." She soared off, her wings like feathered fans against the sun. The mountain watched until she disappeared into the distance. Year after year, when spring came, a small bird flew to the mountain, singing, "I am Joy, and I have come to greet you." And for a few hours, the bird would fly above the mountain and nestle against its side, singing. At the end of each visit, the mountain always asked, "Isn't there some way you could stay?" And Joy always answered, "No, but I will return next year." Each year, the mountain looked forward more and more to Joy's visit. Each year, it grew harder and harder to watch her go. 99 springs came and went in this way. On the 100th spring, when it was time for Joy to leave, the mountain asked once more, "Isn't there a way you could stay?" Joy answered, as she always did, "No, but I will return next year." The mountain watched as she disappeared into the sky, and suddenly its heart broke. The hard stone cracked, and from the deepest part of the mountain, tears gushed forth and rolled down the mountainside in a stream. The next spring, a small bird appeared, singing, "I am Joy, and I have come to greet you." This time, the mountain did not reply. It only wept, thinking of how soon she would leave, and of all the long months before she would come again. Joy rested on her ledge and looked at the stream of tears. Then she flew above the mountain and sang as she always had. When it was time for her to go, the mountain still wept. "I will return next year," said Joy softly, and she flew away. When the next spring came, Joy returned, carrying in her beak a small seed. The mountain still wept a stream of tears. Joy carefully tucked the seed into a crack of the hard stone, close to the stream so that it would stay moist. Then she flew above the mountain and sang to it. Seeing that the mountain was still unable to speak, she flew away once more. During the weeks that followed, the seed in the crack of the rock began to send down tiny roots. The roots reached into the hard stone, little by little spreading into yet smaller cracks, breaking through the hardness. As the roots found water in the cracks and drew food from the softening stone, a shoot rose from the seed into the sunlight and unfolded tiny green leaves. The mountain, however, was still deep in sorrow, blind with tears. It did not notice a plant so small. The next spring, Joy brought another seed, and the spring after that, another. She placed each one in a protected place near the stream of tears and sang to the mountain. The mountain still only wept. Years passed in this way, the roots of new plants softening the stone near the stream of tears. As softened stone turned to soil, moss began to grow in sheltered corners. Grasses and little flowering plants sprouted in hollows near the stream. Tiny insects, carried to the mountain by winds, scurried among the leaves. Meanwhile, the roots of the very first seed went deeper and deeper into the heart of the mountain. Above the ground, what had started as a tiny shoot was growing into the trunk of a young tree, its branches holding green leaves out to the sun. At last, the mountain felt the roots reaching down like gentle fingers, filling and healing the cracks in its heart. Sorrow faded away, and the mountain began to notice changes that had been taking place. Seeing and feeling so many wonderful new things, the mountain's tears changed to tears of happiness. Each year, Joy returned, bringing another seed. Each year, more streams ran laughing down the mountain's sides, and the ground watered by the new streams grew green with trees and other plants. Now the mountain no longer wept with sorrow. It began to ask once more, "Isn't there some way you could stay?" But Joy still answered, "No, but I will return next year." More years passed, and the stream carried life far out into the plains surrounding the mountain, until finally, as far as the mountain could see, everything was green. From lands beyond the horizon, small animals began to come to the mountain. Watching these living things find food and shelter on its slopes, the mountain suddenly felt a surge of hope. Opening its deepest heart to the roots of the tree, it offered them all its strength. The trees stretched out their branches yet higher towards the sky and ran like a song from the heart of the mountain into every tree leaf. And sure enough, when the next spring came, Joy flew to the mountain, carrying not a seed, but a slender twig. Straight to the tallest tree on the mountain she flew, to the tree that had grown from the very first seed. She placed the twig on the branch in which she would build her nest. "I am Joy," she sang, "and I have come to stay." As we bring to a close our last chapel of the 2018-2019 school year, I want you to know, 8th graders, that Montgomery will always be your home. Please stay in touch with us, come and visit, keep us posted on your amazing achievements in the years to come. And 7th graders, sitting in the back, you should now see yourselves as the leaders of Montgomery School. We still have a few days of school left and wonderful end-of-year traditions to come. So make the most of these final school days together. Thank you.